second episode in very quick succession of the Tyre Recycling Podcast. It is now episode 40 in our series, and we're rapidly approaching the 50th episode, but we still have a bit of ground to cover before then. As usual, I'm joined by Ewan Scott, the magazine's editor. Ewan, a few days ago we spoke to Poul Steen Rasmussen from EURIC, and we covered a lot of ground on the potential Crumb rubber ban that will be implemented. What have you? Obviously, we're following on from that topic today. We alluded to that at the end of last week's the last episode. Could you give a bit more insight and guide into what is going to happen with today's episode?
Right. Today, just to clarify a little bit, the ban is not concrete yet. But it's looking very likely. But today we're talking with Dr. Ettore Musacchi, the President of ETRA. Ettore has been a long-standing supporter of recycling and has been involved in the industry himself. So he understands the issues. He's very enthusiastic about the industry. So we're going to talk to Ettore from ETRA about Crumb rubber recycling and this proposed ban to get a view from ETRA.
Okay, so let's jump into that interview with Ettore from ETRA right now.
So the call today is to talk about the proposed ban on Crumb rubber infill. Can you give me some thoughts from ETRA about the impact that this could have on the industry?
Well, the impact, I think, will be devastating. Okay, as you know, tire recycling sector is altogether a young sector. Okay, it depends on what you consider. We started about 30 years ago. Recycling the tires meant and still mean doing a lot of different kind of materials, because originally the rubber was not suitable to go back into the production of new tire. Okay, so it was necessary to develop a lot of different products, applications, and so on. And this required a lot of time in order to meet the requirement of the application, the market, and so on and so on. So it requires years and years to create a market. And it could happen that a silly mistake or a rash decision could destroy everything. And when you have destroyed the trustness of the market, okay, when you have destroyed a network, when you've destroyed a technical and industrial capacity, there is nothing more to recover. So we saw already in the past this kind of issues. But for instance, I recall when we handled the issue of PAH, the feeling was different. There was a more positive approach, a more positive attitude by all the stakeholders to sit down and understand and try to see if a solution was possible, or try to minimize the risk without killing an industry. And I think in that occasion, altogether, we did a good job. In this situation, I see a sort of let's say, preclusion to, to discuss with the aim to not, damage the counterpart.
Yeah.
It could be helpful to recall that the microplastic issue started in, well, not for us, but I mean the microplastic dossier started in 2018 when the Commission asked to ECHA, submitted to ECHA a request to address the issue, to make an investigation. And I mean, so it's something that is, impacting on, population, on the type of concerns of people and whatever. But, microplastic means a lot of different things, a lot of different products with different characteristics, with different toxicity, or whatever and whatever. I think that I don't know why, but for a certain reason, some mistakes have been done by ECHA. Probably in good faith. I have no way to prove any different attitude, but I think that putting together under the same dossier too many different products, too many different materials has decreased, the competence and the quality of the stakeholders involved. Because, when we are talking about something that is a nanoparticles or a micro substance that go in the paintings or in other chemicals and whatever, is something totally different from a material that has a few millimeter size. From medical point of view, from chemical point of view, we are talking of different world.
Yeah,
totally different.
Do you get the feeling that despite the evidence that the industry has forwarded to the European Chemicals Agency, that they just haven't taken it into account? I was talking to Poul Steen Rasmussen from Genan, and he is as frustrated as you are because the evidence has been presented that properly established artificial turf fields,
well,
drainage, do not have massive losses, but that seems to have been ignored.
Well, I think that we live and we interact in a very complex systems. Okay, European Union is a huge organization. For my experience in many different contexts, I see and I met people really professional, competent, and willing to work together. But when a procedure starts, and there is maybe a conceptual mistake since the beginning, this is continuing to impacting and create issues. I attended the RAC meeting, Risk Assessment Committee of ECHA, in June 2020. And I complained that there was an overcalculation of the release of microplastics. About the infill material, the overcalculation. Because in ETRA, we studied in a very accurate way all the documents, all whatever submitted during the consultation steps of ECHA. Okay, And the calculation was due to the fact they considered in the average a huge amount of rubber granulate that was removed from some fields in Scandinavian countries, removed together with the snow, and discharged into the environment. Okay, I recall that I raised this issue, and the chairman of the meeting, I noticed that he understood the problem, and he openly to the meeting said, "Well, I think this is an opportunity to reopen the discussion on the calculation of the field material." Okay, only myself and him were in favor. No one from the audience, no other organization said, "Well, just make a check, reorganize, or let's fix another meeting to recalculate or verify the calculation." No one, just ETRA. So I had the impression there was also some under-evaluation of the risk of this procedure. You know, when there is something too strong to happen, people say, "No, it's impossible, it's too strong, it's someone will amend it because it's impossible that they will do such a mistake." But if your organization or yourself are not taking care of these procedures, you do not go to vote to the election, you do not participate to meetings, someone else will decide on your behalf. And, you know.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that the industry, the wider industry, hasn't focused on lobbying strongly enough, and as a result, we're almost locking the stable door once the horse has bolted.
Well, I don't know. My feeling is that there was a general, let's say, under-evaluation of the problem. Okay, people were confident. Well, you know, also for the pH, we were concerned, but at the end, reasonable people discussed and whatever. Okay, but reasonable people at least attended to the meetings. I recall a meeting in The Hague about PAH, and there were people from all over Europe discussing with the Environment Agency of the Netherlands, because they were in charge of preparing the dossier, and there was a positive discussion, and the feeling was people were really contributing to clarify points. My feeling is that in this situation there was not so so good participation. I have another remark. The alternative, and I think it was a good alternative, was to adopt risk management measures in the fields. Okay, I think they did an excellent job from the point of the technical, definition of the different points of relief, of possible relief, of course, the containments and whatever. But I'm afraid that this good work has not been supported from political point of view. You know, and so this became a weak alternative. When I saw that, for instance, German adopted the decision, I mean, the lenders, the regions of Germany adopted the decision, not now, but many months ago, not to ban the rubber granulate, but simply not to support financially new fields using polymeric infill. Okay, this is a political message. I think the very strong political and environmental message would have been: we financially support fields who comply with the requirement of containment, with they are available to receive controls and checks if they are doing well and whatever. This would have been a very strong message also to the Commission to say, well, we trust in sports association, we trust in citizens that are willing to have a positive environmentally and sustainable behavior, not just because we say, well, I'm in favor of green products or recycling materials or whatever. But if we do not do in this way, it's always someone else who has to be sustainable, circular, green, whatever. So I think that there is something very strange, because in the if this decision will be adopted, and I'm quite pessimistic at this time, because every step went in the direction of adopting the ban. But if this ban will be adopted, I think it's a nonsense, because it's not reducing the release, is simply forbidding the sales in 6 years or whenever. Okay, but in the meantime, the message is, well, you may continue to build your fields. It doesn't matter if they release materials, but you can do this until let's say 2030 or something like this. This is a very negative message.
Yeah. So they're essentially saying you can carry on for a period doing something which is harmful when there is a positive solution available that they're not supporting. So yeah, I get that, and it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. But another question: what happens if this ban goes through? What happens to the possibly 400,000 tons of tires every year Europe creates?
Good question. Well, at the moment, I do not see a equal strong alternative market. Okay. But the fact that the ban is pushing in the direction of stopping the sales of the material, my questions to myself is, maybe there is a commercial interest from other kind of situation. Could be either another kind of infill material, but also an interest for rubber materials to be used in a different context. Well, this is, I'm wondering, because I have no elements to figure out this.
I must admit that I hadn't thought of it that way, but I had sort of, we have a number of new industries who have feedstock security issues, and it may well be that their feedstock issues could be resolved because the tires have to go somewhere. If Europe also introduces a transport ban, so we can't export them, they have to be processed within Europe, and that might resolve some some challenges that some of the other sectors are seeing.
Okay. Well, Ewan, I agree to what you are saying. But, we are in contact also with different kind of entrepreneurs, because we work in research projects, and research projects involve also other sectors for the reason I was saying before. And talking to other people from other sectors, they confirm to me that there is a sort of continuous attempt to obstacle recycling in any different kind of materials. It seems as if the old economy or very strong lobbies that controls, virgin material flow are really, really concerned, because they are noticing that recycling is making incredible technical progress. The Commission is laying its own policy mainly on circular economy, Green Deal, and whatever. And so this creates a reaction that, of course, is not open, because the mainstream message is we are green, the environment, and so on and so on. But there are very strong interests behind commodities.
Yeah.
Incredible interest. Okay. I cannot tell you the names, but yesterday I had meetings with a company working with high-value materials to recycle these materials, and they're not able to find any more scraps, because few industries in the world are pushing towards landfill. Because, materials has also a content of know-how, the composition, a certain kind of let's say, added value, and they do not want that this added value could become a material that is not under their control.
Yeah, it gets very complex when you start looking at some of the things that go on behind closed doors. And I think if you try to tell people, if you try to talk openly about it, you get accused of being a conspiracy theorist. But sometimes there are conspiracies there, particularly in the tire industry.
No, well, I'm not talking about tire industry, I'm talking in general. Okay?
Yeah.
When the industry are too big, they are also very scared of losing the control of, let's say, supply chains, of strategic materials that they need, and so on and so on. But I think that we cannot solve this stopping recycling, because tire industry, for instance, just to make a very clear example now, is becoming more and more aware of the risk that the rubber production, virgin rubber, is concentrated in an area of the world, and owing to international crisis, pandemic situation that they experience, the war now in Ukraine. I mean, this supply stream could be in some way interrupted. Okay, so it's not I think wise to simply stop processes because for the moment you do not need it, and then maybe you discover later on that all the European industry is suffering from the lack of materials, many different sectors, and so on. So I think that this ban of infill materials is not just damaging artificial turf for tire recycling. could damage the rubber industry at large in the future. Because if we are not supporting the recycling sector, the recycling capacity, okay, you risk to lose everything. Because also the market, they use rubber granulate, they're not from sports, they will tend to enter in a loop and say, well, if this supply chain is not, strong enough, maybe in 2 years or whenever, I risk to not have rubber granulate for rails, for roads, and whatever. So why I have to start using this material and investing and developing? So this is a very tricky situation that I still hope that it is just a mistake, or it's just, let's say, a difficult point of this process and we can at some point be able to catch up and reconsider and whatever. But I still thinking they are deciding to stop the sales. Why? They are not protecting the environment. They're saying, well, we need the microplastic is a major issue, so fine, but this is not reducing microplastics if the quantities they calculated are correct. And I strongly doubt that these amounts are correct. Okay. And it's a totally different issue. Also, the size. I mean, because a micro dimension, 0.2 microns, 0.3 microns of polymeric particles could, at a certain point, enter the food chain. But there is no evidence that something of 2 millimeters may anyway enter the food chain. So I'm wondering how scientists are not available to discuss on this. Okay,
I think I presented at the ETRA conference a few years back, and I argued that the biggest problem we have on Crumb rubber is that it's an emotional issue. And when it becomes an emotional issue, essentially you can't argue with the mothers at the school gate. They will always win. Science doesn't matter. It's what they think that matters. And I have a suspicion that the emotional side of the argument has won over at the moment, has won over the technical side of the argument.
I tend to agree to your point. I think that the emotional issue has a major impact, has a major role in this decision. I would tend to say not only emotional, but as I said before, microplastics is a topic for the media. Consider that more and more people feel that the quality of their life is decreasing for many different reasons, not just economic, but also we live in an environment that is polluted from different sources. Think also about the issue of the pandemic. We discovered that we are more vulnerable to a virus, and so people perceive also that can be vulnerable to pollution, to whatever. So if I think to the consultation on microplastics, okay, and we analyze the figures, okay, infill material is the biggest I mean, the product with the biggest magnitude in terms of quantities. But also on this point, there was a very, unpleasant miscalculation. Because I make a very simple example. If I put microplastics into a bath foam, all these particles are intended to be used, and they're used to be released. So the percentage of the release out of the use is 70%. Indeed, 70% was the average calculated by ETRA. In our case, yes, we are using 300,000 tons per year of rubber granulate, but not as material to be intended to be released, but as a material to be intended to stay in a place. So if we calculate the potential release from a field, our release is 0.03%. It means if we consider the dimension of the use, the release is nothing. Okay? Even if calculated in the huge amount that ECA miscalculated and whatever. But the emotional impact to say, well, you are not aware of the microplastic that are in the cosmetics or are in the seeds or in the painting and whatever. But as a citizen, you see an artificial turf, you see something that is very big, and you can be led to be convinced that this is a major source of pollution. Okay, and there is a sort of attitude to simplify thought and logic consequence and whatever. From my point of view, the fact that few sport associations remove the snow and together with the snow, the rubber granulate and put this into a river or whatever, this is a criminal act that should be pursued. And I understand that the angriness of public administration or association in the Scandinavian country when they show this. They were totally right. But it is not the fault of tire recyclers if someone make a wrong use of, it's like you drive your car like a crazy, you have an accident. I mean, it's not the fault of car producers or drivers in general. It's one single act that has been illegal. But you're right. The emotions is something that involves the majority of people, and message that arrives through the media works in a different way.
Yeah.
The very classical example, people are much more concerned of a plane accident rather than car accident. So people are afraid, some people, to take the flight, and they did not realize that there are many more casualties and deaths on the road.
Okay, so there you have it. That was our second interview on the potential Crumb rubber ban. Ewan, that interview, once again, it was a very similar theme to what we saw with Poul. I felt there was a lot of frustration, also a sense of not regret, but just a sense of sadness of what this sort of means for the environment and also the industry. What was your take on what we saw there?
I think once again we saw frustration, and knowing Ettore as I do, I suspect a bit of anger that we're in this situation. As he alluded to, in the PAH issue that the European Chemicals Agency looked into previously, the industry was united and were supportive. They were there, they were at meetings, and they argued the case as a body. With this, apparently, ETRA attended meetings, but perhaps the support from the industry wasn't there. The lobbying from the industry wasn't there until it's now almost too late. The proposals have been presented to the European Commission for discussion. They've been sent out to the member states for discussion. And the next step, I think the next step, difficult to follow what happens in Europe sometimes. The next step is that these proposals will come back to the consultation, and these proposals will come back to the European Commission, and they will make any minor changes they want to make, and then they will vote on it. And unless some incredible lobbying work gets done in the next, possibly the next 18 months, I think we could see ourselves with an imminent crisis in how do we deal with all this material. And as Ettore says, there's a knock-on impact, because if you take away the main, if you like, the main source of funding, the main market, that pushes that makes it a niche market for the ancillary industries that use the material, and that then pushes up the cost of their raw materials, which might then have knock-on effects on how they can sell. It's an argument we can have with we're in the UK, and I'm sure around Europe we're seeing sort of stop oil protests and people wanting to stop oil. You look at them and they address the man-made clothes that require oil to make them. They arrive on cars that have tyres that need oil to make the tyres. So if you take away the main market for oil in the internal combustion engine, which may come, we don't know, if they take away that main market, then it makes the cost effectiveness of producing the oil less effective, less efficient, which again pushes the prices up for other industries. So the clothes that we wear become more expensive, the food that we eat becomes more expensive, and I'm not sure. I think I read someone who said that environmentalism is a rich man's prerogative, and it's, the more you look at it, the more it seems that way.
Yeah, it's very difficult on the environmentalist side. I know they've obviously coming at it from a place of goodwill, but you know, if any problem, you can't. If you want to get rid of a problem, you need to come up with a solution. You need to come up with a solution and an appropriate solution. You know, we're all. I think as human beings, we're all very good at complaining about something, but it's about, you know, how are you going to solve this? Don't just complain about it. I don't want to hear about it. How are you going to solve this, and what's your proposal? You know, because we now, unless, as you said, something miraculous happens, we do have a very big problem in terms of what we're going to do with those tires. It will be interesting to see if over the course of this, I think there was I can't remember how long the transition period they were suggesting. Paul suggested was it 6 or 7 years, I think, before the ban. It'll be interesting to see how other solutions for tyre recycling grow in that time, and maybe they could replace some of that feedstock issue. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah. I mean, we avoided we avoided mentioning pyrolysis, which is
Yeah.
a miracle in itself. But one of the beneficiaries from this could well be the pyrolysis industry through securing its feedstock, and the combination of the infill ban and the ban, or an imminent ban on exports further down the line, put the two together, and Europe will have to do something with its TyreArisings, but it may well be that that's where we end up. The bulk of the business will possibly go to pyrolysis, which will be music to some people's ears.
Definitely. Okay, well, yeah, thanks for that interview again, Ewan. We obviously will continue to cover this. I'm sure this will move and continue going. I'll be interested to see if we have any people from the other side of the argument watch our podcast over the last few days and see if anyone gets in touch with us. We'll keep an eye out for that. But thank you for that. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening to the latest episode of the Tyre Recycling Podcast. Till then, please stay safe and thank you for watching.